Hey. Oh. Hi, kid. Still think you don't need a flu shot? My expert guest has thoughts. Hello, Vermont. Okay, I'm not an actress, but there you go. I'm going to be honest. I do not regularly get a flu shot, not because I am anti-vaccination, but because, well, I seldom get sick and it just isn't something I think about. But my guest today is prepared, I know, to change my mind, and I am here for it. Dr. Benjamin Lee is an associate professor of pediatrics at the UVM Larner College of Medicine and a pediatric infectious disease physician at the UVM Children's Hospital. In addition to his clinical practice, he conducts pediatric clinical and translational research with UVM's Translational Global Infectious Diseases Research Center and Vaccine Testing Center. I can't think of anyone better to talk with us about the merits of flu shots. Dr. Lee, welcome.
Thanks.
Thanks
Glad
for
to be
joining
here.
us. Yeah. So I know we started out kind of lighthearted, but let's start by talking about the flu and how serious really is the flu?
Well, influenza is a very serious illness. Every year on average, we might expect to see almost 500,000 people hospitalized with influenza
that's
every
a lot.
year.
Yeah.
And depending on the season, in the United States, anywhere from 10 to 50,000 people are expected to die due to influenza every respiratory virus season in the winter months. So there is a significant health burden, and that doesn't even begin to get into account the number of days of missed work days, missed school days, the greater effect on the community and economy due to so much illness that occurs due to influenza during the winter months.
You know, and you called it the respiratory virus season. So maybe explain that.
Yeah, so that's.
Are we talking about airborne viruses?
Well, it's a term that we sort of throw around a lot in the medical community, but we do know that the winter months in temperate climates is when we tend to see the most influenza infections. So we have a very predictable season. So here in the northern part of the United States, we start to see influenza, with some year-to-year variation, start to trickle in towards the end of later in the calendar year, with a peak going into January, February. So we see lots of cases of influenza, RSV, other respiratory viruses tend to sort of cluster during those winter months. It's believed that, or has been shown rather, that colder and drier environmental conditions lets the virus persist a little bit longer. So it could be the virus has a little bit of an advantage during the winter months. Now that's in places with a pronounced season. In tropical climates where the temperature and climate is more uniform, instead of having these really pronounced peaks, we see influenza tend to be spread out more evenly across the year.
So when is the best time to get your flu shot?
So the best time is right now. So in our region, sort of October is sort of the sweet spot. The reason for that is it takes the vaccine about 2 weeks before it starts to become effective, likely with a peak at about 4 weeks. And then it will provide protection for several months thereafter. So probably no more than 6 months total. But if everybody gets their vaccine now, then that means they should be well protected during that peak season, in January, February. So at the end of the day, everybody 6 months of age or older who is eligible to get a shot, which is almost everybody, should definitely get their flu shot this year and every season.
Got it. But what was flu season like before we had vaccinations? Yeah,
well, flu shots first were introduced decades and decades ago. This was a major priority going all the way back towards like the 1940s, 1950s. Now, historically, we know a lot more now about the virus and how to make vaccines compared to back in those days. And so flu shots have been sort of a major part of our public health approach for decades now. I think things really sort of ramped up following the last influenza pandemic, which was the H1N1 pandemic in 2008, 2009, because during that pandemic, one of the things that was a surprise, but was very clear, was that a huge proportion of hospitalizations and deaths due to that virus actually were occurring in young and otherwise healthy people. And with that came the recognition that, wow, really anybody, even if you're young and healthy, could be at risk for severe influenza or even death due to influenza. And so there really has been a concerted push to make sure every year everybody should get a flu shot.
Yeah. And how are flu shots formulated? Because from year to year, there might be minor differences in the flu shot, right?
Yes. So the differences year to year have to do with the different strains of the flu virus that are contained in the shot. But the general.
Who monitors the viruses?
So usually that's a global effort, and historically that's been a lot of the heavy lifting for that work has been coordinated by the World Health Organization. So it involves surveillance sites spread all throughout the world, keeping tabs on what the viruses are looking like, which are the important players, and using all that data over the course of a year. A group of experts, scientists who make it, make this their living, then will use that data to make an informed decision about what the most likely viruses are that should be the most important ones to include in the coming year's flu season. The actual method for making the vaccines, however, don't change from year to year. Historically, and even today, the majority of flu vaccines require growing the virus in chicken eggs, and then inactivating it for injection. However, with the recognition with the H1N1 pandemic that we needed faster ways of and more diverse ways of making flu vaccines, there are some newer technologies that have helped. There are some vaccines that are now made using recombinant protein technology, and others that are grown using cell-based methods rather than egg-based methods. So what that means is that there's a variety of different vaccine formulations out there, and the goal is to make sure we don't, pardon the pun, but we don't have all of our eggs in one basket in case something happens.
That's a good pun, though.
Thank you. In case something happens, so we have a more diversified vaccine supply. And somewhat more flexible as well.
So that gives me two follow-up questions. So one, I had heard that if you were allergic to eggs, that might put you, that you could not get the flu shot. Is that true or false?
So that's a great question, because at one time there was a lot more concern about the risk of flu shots in people with egg allergies. But it turns out even in flu vaccines that are grown in eggs, the amount of egg protein that ends up in the flu shot itself is so minute that really there's very little risk.
So it's okay.
So it is okay if you are allergic to eggs to get a flu shot. And for the folks who are who want an added bit of assurance, some of those other methods that I mentioned, either recombinant protein vaccines or cell-based vaccines, don't use eggs at all. So
is that something you can ask your doctor for specifically if you have an allergy?
It is something you can ask. If there are what the options are as far as the exact formulation. But in general, it's perfectly safe for people with egg allergies to get flu shots now.
So my other follow-up question, there's been a lot in the news about thimerosal and mRNA. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? Is that something people should be concerned about?
Well, at this time, there are no approved flu shots that use mRNA vaccines. There are a number that are in clinical development. Now, I do think that mRNA vaccines probably are going to be critical to specifically influenza pandemic preparedness, because without question, it's the fastest way to make new vaccines.
That's how we made the COVID vaccine so
exactly
quickly.
Well demonstrated with COVID. So there's a lot of intense interest in making sure that mRNA vaccines will be sort of ready to go for influenza as well.
Rapid public health response.
Exactly. In addition to just adding to being able to contribute eventually to the seasonal vaccine supply. Now, thimerosal is a mercury-based preservative that's received a lot of attention because there are some who have claimed that it might be associated with adverse side effects of vaccination, including autism. Now, thimerosal was removed from the U.S. vaccine supply decades ago. The only formulation that contained thimerosal were some specific formulations of flu vaccine that were designed to be stored in a multi-dose vial. And if we look at the data, those represented just a tiny fraction of flu doses that were given, even when it was being used for that purpose. It recently now has been announced that that will also go away. If I remember the numbers, it was in the single digits in terms of the percentage of flu shots that were given in the U.S. that used it.
So maybe we're hearing more about this in the news right now than actually matches what's real about it in the supply. Okay. So when you're thinking about a flu shot, how long does a flu shot work? And does it guarantee that you will not get sick?
So again, great questions. I'll do the second question first.
I know, I hit you with a double, sorry.
So there is not a guarantee that even if you get a flu shot, you might not get the flu.
Okay.
We know that the flu shots are not 100% effective. What we do know is that in patients who are vaccinated, even if they do get the flu, the likelihood of or rather the severity of that flu infection it will be far less.
Okay.
So you'll have far less severe infection and a far lower risk of needing to be hospitalized or receive medical care as a result.
So you're reducing your risk.
You're definitely reducing your risk. Usually the standard sort of number that's looked at in terms of looking at flu, how well the flu vaccine works is effectiveness. And in general, on average, flu vaccines are expected to be about 50% effective every year. So some folks might say, it only works half the time. So, that's not, that doesn't sound like a very good number. But in fact, that number doesn't capture a lot of the other aspects of the other benefits of vaccination.
Right.
So I wouldn't focus just on that one number.
Okay, good.
And because not only does it reduce the severity of illness, even if you were to catch it, but it also may prevent secondary complications that aren't being captured at all in that number.
Right. Okay. Well, I will say that I think that I have been, like I said, it's never been an anti-vaccination. I just forget about it. This year, however, I'm going to make a plan to go and get my flu shot. If you have more questions about vaccines and vaccine access, visit the Vermont Department of Health website. The address is listed right there on your screen. Dr. Lee, thank you so much for joining me, clearing the situation for us. It's been great and helpful. As always, Vermont, thank you for learning and exploring with me today, and thanks to the team that makes Across the Fence possible. I'm Amy Finley. This is Across the Fence. Come back and let's learn and explore again tomorrow.